Happened to you guys on June the 8th, 1967 was actually a seminal moment in world history. And yet the true story has been buried by your government. And the reason is that what happened was so shaming, not just to Israel, but to America too. Only by a hair's breadth did the world avoid a nuclear exchange. The superpowers nearly led us into a third world war. And of course, the story starts with the Liberty incident, the attempted obliteration of your state-of-the-art spy ship for reasons that have remained utterly obscure. It's a miracle that only 34 died, but of course more than 170 of your shipmates were injured. Speaking to survivors and studying what documents were available, including Jim Ennis's book and indeed the one written by Anthony Pearson, I concluded swiftly that the attack was deliberate. The task for me was to find out why. During the course of the attack, within Israel, orders must have been transmitted from different control rooms in Tel Aviv and Haifa to 2 squadrons of Israeli planes, to 3 motor torpedo boats, a significant part of the Israeli Navy at the time, and to 2 helicopter gunships. This was not something that came together at the spur of the moment. My first conclusion was not only that the attack was deliberate, but that the intention was to sink the ship and kill everyone aboard. When the attack was aborted, Israel had to start thinking about how to invent excuses. But it knew, and this is important, it knew that America was not going to dispute it. Why did it know that? Because it knew that it had as much to cover up as Israel had. They too began a massive cover-up. How could Uncle Sam turn the other cheek? The answer lies in all the secrets that they had been keeping. It's absolutely tragic that you guys were bullied and cajoled into suppressing anything you might know about the attack, enabling, in fact, a completely false account of what happened to be published in the so-called inquiry that was conducted by the Navy. You must have wondered why you were in the middle of an Alice in Wonderland world, why you were being manipulated, why your country was so keen to keep everything under wraps. There are so many imponderables. For example, why had no help arrived from the Sixth Fleet, even though you received messages aboard USS Liberty that help was on its way? Prior to the attack, why was your ship placed in the middle of a war zone with no destroyer protection? Was there evidence, I think there was, that people aboard the ship knew attack might happen? Certainly, I think that Washington knew, and when signals were sent to move you out of the area, a very strange succession of events took place to make sure you never got the message. Of course, Liberty was in a war zone and listening into the war. And of course, you had been sent there very hurriedly from the coast of Africa. Why was the attack stopped just before the final coup de grace, when you would have been sunk and you would all be dead? There is, of course, a perfectly plausible explanation. The reason is that Israel tried to prevent Liberty sending out a signal of distress, but you did. You managed to get an SOS out. You did get a reply from the Sixth Fleet saying help was on its way. That meant planes were probably coming in your direction that would expose Israel as being the aggressor. At that point, clearly they had to abort. This was a black op, and the plan was to blame the attack on Egypt. Why blame the attack on Egypt? Because they were looking for an excuse to punish Nasser regime in Cairo for a bogus event. How do we know that? So the planes that first attacked the Liberty were painted black with no visible markings. Those of you who were on the deck dodging bullets could therefore not identify your attacker. Now, unmarked planes cannot be produced quickly in an emergency. To me, this alone is evidence of premeditation. Some of you have testified that the motor torpedo boats shot up your life rafts, meaning that you had no way of saving yourselves if the ship began to sink. This was, of course, a war crime, and it's further indication that the intention that nobody should be left alive to tell the tale. When the attack ceased and the ship managed to stay afloat, you have to conclude something had gone badly wrong with the Israeli operation. Operation Cyanide has never been admitted by the American government. Aboard your ship, we know there were sealed orders. about Operation Sinai, but we don't know what they said. I can tell you that Operation Sinai was instituted at least a year before you were attacked. It was concocted by influential people in Israel and America working in the shadows. It had White House approval from a cutout mechanism called the 303 Committee. The fact that the 303 Committee had approved this operation means that Lyndon Johnson was well aware of it. Once agreed, it meant that those organising the forthcoming war against Egypt had available all the military aid they needed from America, including the latest technology. And not just technology, there were people sent to Israel to help with the war too. I know the substance of all this from people who actually took part in Operation Sinai. So I can tell you that from the late 1966 onwards, there were US military personnel, experts, stationed in Tel Aviv, helping with Operation Sinai and planning for a forthcoming war against Egypt. It wasn't to defend Israel from attack by Egypt. It was to promote an attack by Israel on Egypt. They had a lot of work to do. They had to plan the war, and they also had to come up with a convincing excuse for launching an attack. President Nasser, who led Egypt, was a great help to them. He was prone to make hot-headed pronouncements, attacking Israel and threatening all sorts of dire consequences. Of course, he was trying to help the Palestinians, but he also wanted to bolster his own standing within the Middle East, where he was becoming a noted leader. Of course, it was said that he was seriously intending to attack Israel, and that Israel had to launch a war because it needed to preempt that. I don't believe it, because 70% of Nasser's forces were bogged down in a war in the Yemen. And he knew, and the Soviets had told him this, that he couldn't possibly win against Israel with just 30% of his normal fighting force. As part of Operation Sinai, he was therefore characterized as a dangerous communist stooge, an unpredictable character, and of course, someone who was determined to destroy Israel. And LBJ would have been in favor of a war in Egypt because he was bogged down in Vietnam, and a successful attack on Nasser would have bolstered his standing and helped him stand again for president in 1968. We have to remember what was happening elsewhere in the area. Indeed, very close to the ship, because underneath Liberty, there was a Polaris submarine, the USS Andrew Jackson, which had followed your ship all the way from Spain. But remember, a submarine like that has only one purpose, and that is to strike against an enemy with nuclear weapons in the event of a nuclear war. So we have to consider that the American military had sent that submarine with you to the area with that eventuality in mind. But the truth is that your military leaders knew something pretty catastrophic might happen when you got into the war zone. Further west from the Liberty, several hundred miles away near Crete, was the Sixth Fleet. Now, of course, one of the controversial issues is that the Sixth Fleet could have sent destroyers to accompany Liberty into the area, but that was refused. Another extraordinary thing is that signals were transmitted from Washington through many different channels to Liberty to get out of the area, but they never arrived. This was said to be just another series of blunders, but I don't believe in blunders in this context. But as the attack unfolded and the Sixth Fleet got a message from the Liberty that you were being attacked, instead of sending planes to your rescue, they started a counterattack on Cairo. I said in my first book that nuclear-armed planes were dispatched from the USS America to bomb Cairo. How did I know that these planes were going to attack Cairo? Well, I've learned it from people on the USS America, including a catapult operator, the guy who put the planes in the air, and he said something quite chilling to me. The thing that has always struck me was how close we probably were to World War III. I can remember wondering if I was ever going to see my father or my sister again. So, these planes, launched from the USS America, reached within 3 minutes of dropping these nuclear weapons on Cairo. We know that from several sources. They were well over Egyptian territory when an order came through for them to urgently return to base. A panic-stricken Robert McNamara and his president Lyndon Johnson, came on the line and ordered the recall. Of course, we know that he also said in another call that he didn't want to embarrass an ally when it all came out that Israel was responsible for the attack. Altogether, 50 planes were dispatched towards Egypt. And after their recall, every one had to be counted in. It is reminiscent of Dr. Strangelove. It was impossible for America to escape censure if any of this came out. Its role is as reprehensible as that of Israel's, which is why my new book is called Goliath's Guilty Secret. Goliath is your country. You were the big boys helping Israel do all this. For years, it's quite well known now that Israel had been attempting to complete its first nuclear weapon at Dimona, their secret nuclear weapons plant in the Negev desert. By the summer of 1967, the CIA had intelligence that a bomb was near completion. As your ship neared its position, I now can say that this nuclear weapon was ready to be detonated. You were going to be in the fallout zone of where the bomb was going to go off. And it nearly did go off. There were teams in Israel ready to fly in helicopters with this device and detonate it in place. It was a suicide mission because they didn't have timing mechanisms for the bomb. They had to run a very long wire, nearly a mile, to a detonator and set it off themselves. And of course, being a mile from a bomb like that was likely to end in their deaths. One of the brave volunteers who was due to go on the mission has spoken to me in detail, and he had something to say. This man understood that the bomb was going to be detonated on a mountain in the Sinai desert. And he told me this. He said, I didn't know what it would mean for me to lay on a mountain 1.5 kilometers from a nuclear bomb. What happens? Am I going to burn immediately? Will I be thrown into the air? The operation to place a bomb in Egypt was called Operation Samson, which indicates it was a sort of suicide mission, a last-ditch measure. And some of these people have indicated that the Americans knew about it, that they knew what Israel was up to. We must consider whether this was another reason why USS Liberty was sent close to the proposed blast area. Or is it just a bizarre coincidence? I doubt it. Putting all these pieces of the puzzle together, it is no exaggeration to say that we were close to World War III. How close is revealed in my final story, and it's equally spine-tingling. America's Strategic Air Command was controlled from a huge underground nerve center in Arizona. Its role was to launch a nuclear blitzkrieg on Russia and China. Its primary means of doing that were B-52 nuclear-armed bombers. I now know that before the Liberty attack, these bombers were put on high alert. I interviewed a pilot of a B-52 who was on high alert in California, and he was placed in that position and put on high readiness before the Liberty attack. We also know that in Arizona, at SAC headquarters, similar measures were in place. And it's interesting, isn't it, that the involvement of the SAC suggests that other countries should well have known what was going on, because launching a nuclear war involved NATO. And the involvement of SAC suggests America and Israel were not the only countries that might have been involved in events of that period. SAC was, of course, hooked into NATO, which was based in Europe. NATO was led by an American General Lemnitzer. One crucial piece of evidence came to me recently, and that is that a squadron of Lightning aircraft, which were trained and designed to counter a Soviet nuclear attack, were on high alert in Cyprus for the whole duration of the Six-Day War. So what did Britain know about the Six-Day War that they've never told us about? Further supporting evidence is that British intelligence agents were working alongside American personnel in Israel as part of Operation Sinai in 1966, planning the war against Egypt. How do I know this? I have interviewed people who were there who confirm it. This is such a complex story. It is understandable we are still searching for answers. But even after more than 50 years, it is vitally important that we keep searching, not just from a historical perspective, but because it still has a bearing on modern world problems, not least the Palestinian problem. In the early 60s, long before the Six-Day War, a plan called Operation Northwoods was drawn up by the Pentagon. The idea was to blacken the character of Fidel Castro, label the country, Cuba, as an aggressor, and create a casus belli, a justification for America launching an attack on the country. When Operation Northwoods was brought to Kennedy in the Oval Office, he was horrified. It had numerous black ops that he strongly disapproved of. The man who brought that plan to him was General Lyman Lemnitzer, the guy who was in charge of US forces in Europe during the Six-Day War. Kennedy was so furious that within months he had Lemnitzer dispatched to Europe. He considered him to be a highly dangerous man. He was a hawk, virulently anti-communist, and prepared to do almost anything to get rid of the Soviet Union, including launch a nuclear war. The Northwoods Plan proposed many provocations, but one in particular is relevant. It recommended that an American ship should be sailed into Havana harbor where it would blow up. This would then be blamed on Cuba, giving an excuse to America to invade. The idea, as far as the Joint Chiefs of Staff were concerned, and Lemnitzer in particular, the use of nukes were not off the agenda in that eventuality. We therefore must ask whether the attack on the Liberty was modelled on these sort of dirty tricks tactics, because they are so similar in terms of the detail. In Washington, we have to look at what was going on within the White House. There were very strong Jewish-Israeli connections between Johnson and some of his close allies. All that needs picking apart before we fully understand what was going on. But my main conclusion is it is impossible that McNamara and Johnson did not know of the events in the Mediterranean. I haven't given up hope, and I hope you haven't, that one day the American government will do a proper inquiry. This story is a live one. You only have to see what has been happening in Gaza in the last month to see that what happened in the Six-Day War has had ramifications all through the decades. The plight of the Palestinians is still the same. Israel has tried through the years to create a Jewish state, but it hasn't been able to live in peace with its neighbors. The story has not yet ended. The story has not yet
There's Phil. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hey, hey.
Hello.
Hi. Great to meet you guys. I was going to open up with the Massey clip, but I think it's been circulating everywhere today. Did we lose Phil? Okay. I think, we lost Jamie. Okay, I'm sure they'll be back. That was it. Okay, we'll give it a minute. I'm sure they'll come right back in. Since we may have some more viewers here today than we have, was that you or me? I hope I didn't actually.
That was me.
Okay, good. I was pulling the other file out and I thought, oh, did I click it? Okay, so since we might have some more viewers than our typical audience, I thought I would just start out by saying that what we are trying to do at No Peasants is help promote third-party and independent candidates. And I'm actually the only host that hasn't been a candidate. Phil Anderson, who will be back in a moment, I'm sure, has run for office, I think, 6 times. He's a libertarian. Michael Harbaugh is an independent that ran in 2024. Oh, I think Phil's having an issue. Okay. He's got an internet issue, so we'll see if he can come back. And then also Matt Ho, he was here last week. He ran as a Green in North Carolina. So I just wanted to say that before we get started, because we do have all libertarians today, which is fine and great, but we do try to have that balance. And what we focus on is the candidate pledge, which I created, but I created it all from polling that I researched, and it kind of grew out of candidates for Assange, because I realized that we had a lot of overlap with Greens and Libertarians, and then some independents. So, these are all the issues here. If you've watched, you've seen it before, but we're anti-war. We're all about civil liberties, First and Fourth Amendment, government transparency, and we'll ask you guys about each of those. Demilitarize the police, election reform, which I have to say before we get started, I have to share something. It's really important. Justice reform, environmental hazards, and healthcare reform. So before I introduce you, I'm going to do this at the top, which I don't normally do, but it's really important. And before I get into other things, let me just pull this up. I noticed a post by Joe Kent. And since I've got libertarians on here, I hope you guys might be familiar with this or can shed some more light on it for me. But something in this really alarmed me, and I'm bringing this up now at the top because it's very topical. It's about Israel and AIPAC's, impact on our elections, on our government, and everyone, I think, across the aisle is upset about this. And he said something in this post that really concerned me, but I don't see anybody really talking about it. So he says, we give Israel unprecedented access to facets of our government and electoral systems, enabling their overt influence over our foreign policy. So that alarm bells went off for me because I'm also an election integrity activist. I have some minimal cybersecurity certification, and we hold meetings every week with experts that know more than I do about the computers and about the whole system. So let me go to this next. Last week in our meeting, we were reading a report that was in PBS, or an article in PBS that cites a report. And so basically the gist of this article is we're kind of warning you that, we're not too worried about anything electronic or with the voting election structure itself. We're more concerned about influence operations. And I don't know, it didn't sit right with me, but they're talking about, warning about AI, and it kind of reminded me of the Russiagate stuff with the beware of all the Facebook ads. And but anyway, I decided in our meeting, we went on a deep dive. Who is this company that they were citing this report from? So I'll share that, and let's see, where's the actual report? Okay, here it is. So this is the report. Now, keep in mind, they spent this whole article warning, and this whole thing, which we decided looks like a brochure, warning about AI, warning about influence operations, and then they went into, I'll just stick with the main slides here. I encourage you to go look this up. The company is Checkpoint. But here we go. So now they're warning about election interference. Now they did say there were a lot of websites and we need to be, related to voting and all this, and that's a security risk. But we went over this with a fine-tooth comb, and there was nothing in here that was any concrete evidence of a concern. It mentioned a couple of counties that had ransomware attacks, but it had nothing to do with elections. So here they go with the fear-mongering. They're warning you about Russian-linked election activity, China, and Iran. And it just, we were open-minded looking at this, but it just was like, what is this? And so then we looked further. This is the leadership of this company. Now, I want to be clear, I don't think I need to say this to you guys. I'm not anti-Semitic. This is simply, this whole entire team is all Israeli and not just Jewish, chief technology officer. And we're talking about Unit 8200 and IDF people.
Wow.
So
Nothing
that's why I had to open with this, because I was so alarmed at this. If you have any interest in election security, election integrity, you're welcome to join us. We do that on well, I think we're doing it on Wednesdays now at 8. Tuesdays or Wednesdays. It's moved around a bit. But unfortunately, that topic is so polarized. And my experience, I would say, Michael, back me up on this if you can recall back over the months. When we have a more left-leaning candidate, it's like they don't want to talk about it at all. And they don't know about it because of the whole Stop the Steal thing. Now, when I got involved with election integrity, it was back in 2018, and it was all Democrats. So that's where I came into it. So I just had to share that at the beginning, but let's move on now, and I'll let you guys, or actually I'll hand it to you, Michael. Why don't you do the introductions?
How's it going, everybody? Glad that you two are here. Got some libertarians in the house. I like that. I started my political journey as a libertarian, and I'm largely a libertarian on all the good stuff, I would say. But thank you two for being here. Let's just go around and do some introductions. Let's start here with Jeremy. Tell me about where you're running at and the state of your race and why you're running for office.
My name's Jeremy Todd. I live in Kentucky District 4, which is famously Thomas Massey's district for over a decade. And the reason I'm running is because I'm not at all shocked by what you just showed me. We had $20 million pumped into an empty suit to run a primary campaign against Thomas Massey. And because of AI, advertisements, because of strategically using AI to target an age demographic via Fox News, I believe that they were duped into voting for somebody who would make a terrible candidate. And so that's why I'm running, is to make sure that doesn't happen, and instead that the legacy of Thomas Massey lives on, the legacy of Ron Paul lives on, and I'm here to fight for the liberty movement.
Are you seeing a lot of loyalty to Trump still amongst the older Republican, the 65 and older, the 55 and older, are still loyal to the president?
Yes, because their exposure to the outside world is Fox News. They only consume propaganda. They don't consume, outside of a couple of MAGA Facebook groups that are just completely cursed with boomer slop AI. They have no exposure in the political world outside of the propaganda at Fox News. So yeah, that unfortunately is a problem with the older demographics of America. But the younger demographics here, and I don't even mean younger, I just mean 55 and younger, Gen X and below, they kind of are, along with me, grossed out by what was done to the people in this district with the Israeli money coming in, the Israeli influence over these. And you know, the grossest part about it is that all of this money from the Israel lobbies come in, and they don't actually run ads that are pro-Israel. Or, you know, like Thomas, it's like, here's Thomas Massey holding hands with AOC and Ilhan Omar. They're not even propaganding their propaganda. It's so dirty and disgusting what happened here. I could not sit on the sidelines anymore and not step into this race.
I'm so glad you did. That's awesome. Okay, let's go to Jamie. And I just want to say it's cool to have female candidates. We don't have a whole lot. So,
hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. I am running in Pennsylvania's 1st congressional district. I'm a suburb of Philadelphia. I am running against, I guess what some would say, the biggest rhino in the House. He has a very bad reputation and a very poor Liberty score. I am running because this district deserves so much better, and we have not had any luck getting anyone to replace him because, unfortunately, he has a lot of AIPAC money. And so he just does not seem to be able to be removed from office. But this seems to be a year that people are just fed up. And I'm getting a lot of feedback. Anybody who's signing my petition to get on the ballot is excited to see that there's another option to the Democrat who is on the ballot as well, who is also not a great candidate either. It comes from being a county commissioner with a questionable background in his voting history. I know that the Democrats are really, some of them are very excited, but keep forgetting how quickly this candidate fell in line with Trump's COVID regime. So I see two authoritarians, and I see a lot of money and influence, and I have had enough. I am not a politician. I never had dreams or aspirations to be a politician, but I think that we need to put real people back in government that are not influenced by foreign lobbies, or not influenced by any lobby for that matter, and aren't impressed with power and money. And that's something that I'm not impressed with. I'm impressed with our Constitution, and that's what I'd like to see our Congress uphold.
That's right. That's right. Are you seeing still a lot of loyalty amongst Republicans to the president there in Pennsylvania?
Here in my district, there is a split. There is a massive divide, and that is one of the reasons why I think that this is, if I can get on the ballot, this will be a very interesting race. This district tends to get a lot of attention because of the demographic and split of voters here. We have over 500,000 registered voters here. I think we have about 202,000 Republicans, 206,000 Democrats, and over 100,000 independent and third-party registered voters. So we are generally, we are very purple here, and I'd like to turn us gold. So I think I have a chance of doing that. I'm seeing a lot of people on both the Democrat and Republican side who are just very unhappy with the undue influence over our politicians and our elections, and I think that they're ready to make some waves.
Excellent. Well, the number of independents, speaking of that, I have this, I don't know if this will show up really, might be too small, so I'll have to just read it off if it's not clear. So I did a deep dive, or somewhat of a deep dive, on the Kentucky's 4th District, which I'm sure, Jeremy, you're already doing or have already done. But, you know, of course, I was very disappointed what happened with Massey. But I just wanted to look and see, because some people were saying, oh, you know, maybe there's election fraud or something. So, but what I found very, very promising, if you can see, sorry, it's very tiny, but the 4th District here, when you look and see, and I think, what was the split, was like 45, 55, is that right? I have another graphic, but I don't know the exact number of voters.
But only about 80 to 100,000 voters,
Okay, so, but if you look at this, you see other, we've got 42,252, independent, 265, libertarian, 3,441. You've got 505 Greens. I've mostly voted Green most of my life. I would vote for Massey. So you've got 505 of those, and you've got these couple other parties. And then when I looked and I saw, Kentucky is a closed primary, and the deadline to switch your registration was the end of December, which is a pretty long time. A lot of states, you know, they have closed primaries. As long as, I think if it was a new registration, you could do it by April something. But if you were an existing voter, you had to do it by the end of last year. So I think that shut out a lot of people. Do you know any more about that?
Yes. There are members of Massey's team who have been helping out on our team on a volunteer basis. And they worked polling stations and said that a ton of independents showed up and were turned away for voting because that's the law. And so that was that's kind of why I was willing to get into this race. It's also one of the reasons why, in my opinion, that libertarian number is so low. We are one of the parts of the country, because of Thomas Massie, that have very, very good Republicans. It's not just Massie. There is a deep bench of state representatives, senators, and county commissioners who are very much libertarian in their philosophy and the way that they approach government. And but people know that if I want to support this group of people, I have to be registered as a Republican. And when you look at that 3-2-1 breakdown, people will tell me, well, Kentucky's fourth is very deep red. Like, it's rare that Democrats even run in this race. Well, here's the thing. They don't run against Massie. That's the difference. This is a deep red place when Thomas Massie is the candidate. Otherwise, it's a 3-2-1 district, and that 3 is not safe. That 3 is pissed off. There's a lot of people in that 311,000 Republicans who feel the way that I do, and they feel like they were robbed of the best congressman in America, and they're ready to fight back with me. And you pull away 30-40% of the Republican vote, you add it to that independent and libertarian vote. This gets interesting because it's my understanding that this is not a runoff race. Somebody could win with 34%. You do not need 51%.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, well, we know now, and we have it on our website, that the polling from last year was, across the board, it's 45% of people identify as independent, but among Gen Z, it's like 56%. And it just keeps climbing. So I think that's why I was just hopeful when I saw that. I thought, okay, good. I do want to say, I, just being the skeptic that I am, I guess, and we just had Sergeant Bryce Lockwood on last week. He's a USS Liberty survivor, but I was worried that, that just memorializing them is not enough, that we need an investigation. And if you saw any of the long clip I played at the beginning, that was the author of Operation Cyanide that really investigated all of what happened around when USS Liberty was attacked. And I think we absolutely have to have an investigation. And I don't have it pulled up right now, but USS Liberty vets had started a petition 6 years ago, and I did tag all of these Congress people on Twitter. A whole bunch of them signed it. And they're all bought off by AIPAC, except for Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna had signed it. So I think there's some hope that, maybe he can join forces like he has on other things with Massie to get it going. But I think really those people that signed that, Mike Turner signed it. Can you believe that, Michael? Yeah, he signed it. So I thought the petition was to call for an investigation and to award, I forget who it was, but someone a medal. I'm sorry, I forget the name. And I thought, well, maybe they did that part, but then just dropped the rest of it as far as doing an investigation. But it's a petition that's 6 years old. So I was just very glad that Massie, it was not fluff. It was a call to action. And that was very encouraging. So what do you guys think about his speech today?
It brought a tear to my eye.
Gonna be
Yeah. So, do you guys want to start? We can start at the top of the pledge, I guess. I know you're anti-war, but anything in particular you want to say about the Iran war or anything at all?
Are we starting at the top of the pledge?
Sure.
Does the top of the pledge be anti-war?
It's not a strict thing, but sure. Go ahead.
I'll go quickly. I think most Americans think this war is dumb. Most people under 55 are tired of spending our money on fighting wars on the other side of the country, and I think the secret's out. These wars were not for our benefit. These wars were for the benefit of a foreign country, and we all know and have been impacted by somebody who has been to war and come back with wounds that either they showed or didn't show. And we're just done. We're not doing this to another generation. We are not robbing our wealth and our boys to go fight wars. We need them here, building our communities. We need the money here, building our communities and our families. And war is let these other people deal with their issues.
That's right. Well said.
Yes, very well said, Jeremy. You basically everything that I would have said. I mean, honestly, we can only be strong if we remained armed and neutral. We need to stop sending young men and women overseas on the behest of other nations to fight wars for them. Our young men and women do not deserve to shed blood for anybody in a war of aggression at all. We should not be going to war without the permission of the American people, and it is clear that we do not have that.
Okay, we'll go to
Jamie, would you?
freedom. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to say freedom of speech. Take it away.
Oh, I love this topic. I can never understand why anyone wouldn't fight for freedom of speech vehemently. The fact is that I always bring it back to freedom of association. How do you know who you don't want to associate with if you don't let people say what they think? I don't want to give my business to somebody whom I don't necessarily agree with the things that they practice or they preach. And so I think it's important that we have to defend people's right to say things, even if we don't like them.
Right. Jeremy.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jamie, but I'll take it in a different direction. If you understand that the first thing that tyrannical regimes like North Korea will do is they silence people's voices and they teach people not to speak out. And it's so important to be able to say what you feel, what matters to you, and rally those people, because a lot of people say the Second Amendment exists to defend the First, but without the First, you really can't organize in order to exercise the Second, right? And it's so important that we not censor voices. That's just that censorship is the first step that tyrannical regimes put in place, and unperson people and tell them that you don't actually get to have an opinion. It makes it easy when people aren't able to speak out to, basically crush them and what am I trying to say? Essentially, take all of their rights from them. If you can take away somebody's voice, you can oppress the other rights much more easily.
Right. And I mean, the way they've orchestrated this, basically, where, you can't say anything criticizing a foreign nation's influence on it, or you're anti-Semitic.
Well, they're scaring people into believing that we can't have civil discourse without being hateful, without hating someone else, and it's just not true. I've had some really wonderful discussions with people, and I'm the first to tell you I'm shocked at that I've had the ability of actually getting people to sign my petition after they've told me no. But just to have a conversation with somebody about the things that you disagree on have become almost taboo anymore. You can't have a conversation with somebody that you don't have the same beliefs on, because somehow we've been propagandized into believing that we can't do this without it devolving into chaos.
So,
would anybody like to comment on online censorship in regards to these big tech oligarchs, censoring YouTube, Facebook, and stuff like that? And if you have an opinion on hey, what would be a a good way to kind of handle online activity or stuff like that without these insane censor, because I think what we see going on right now is I don't think a lot of people agree with they're censoring people for politically minded purposes in the name of harassment and stuff like that. So if you have any thoughts, maybe Jamie, if you want to start, any thoughts on what does civil discourse look like, and how do, maybe if you want to comment on how do we rein in these big tech people that are controlling our public town square, the right on their rights on social media.
It's such a hard thing to do without censoring people. I don't have a great answer for that, but I do think that what they do is I recently got blocked on X. I'm so bad with social media. I don't know anything. I'm also not. I'm not somebody who is hateful and mean on social media. I don't generally do a lot of that. I like to joke around a little bit, but I got my account suspended briefly, and I think that they do that. They do that in order to plant the seeds that so that you don't go. It's like a warning, because I've been having a lot of problems with social media, and I barely see anything controversial. So I've had a lot of problems with social media, and honestly, the best way to fight that is to stop using it. But that's how we communicate. So you have to find alternative methods and other platforms that are going to allow to have discourse within people. I mean, and I'm so bad. I don't even know all these platforms that are available. I'm Gen X, so I'm this close to a boomer, and I'm still learning them myself, being with these, with this campaign, just trying to navigate all of it. But it's very hard, and it's hard to tell what's real and what isn't anymore. So, I really do my best. I work with my nieces and nephews to try and show me, what I need to look for in order to figure out certain AI, pick out AI generated things, because I don't have a keen eye for them. So, I mean, it's helpful to have conversations with the people around you that know a little bit more about it, so that you can kind of navigate it a little bit better. But I don't even know how to begin trying to rein that in. It's such a huge part of our lives right now.
Do you have any? What's your take on the surveillance state? Do you have flock cameras?
Horrifying is what it is. It's horrifying. And it goes back to even. I watched years ago. I had watched the Terms and Conditions documentary, and it was very eye-opening about how blindly we just sign away our privacy rights, and you don't think about it. Everything that you're checking, you're signing away, giving your information away. I have no idea where all my information is going, but I know that every terms and conditions that I've checked off have allowed these companies to sell my information. And with the flock cameras and the facial recognition, it's becoming very scary. It's becoming dystopian.
Yes. Jeremy.
Yeah. I'll speak on a topic that's pretty relevant around here and around the country. Guys, they are not building data centers so that you can make cat videos for fun on social media. These are the tools of tyranny. These data centers will only be used to run facial recognition, mass surveillance, CBDCs, and usher in a social credit score system. That is the only way that these will be profitable, is via government contract. Period. End of discussion. There is no profit otherwise that they can make that offsets what these things are. We have to oppose these data centers with every single fiber of our being. Otherwise, we end up exactly where China is, where they don't have to censor you or your freedom of speech. You're free to say what you want to. Then your social credit score goes down, and maybe you don't have access to your bank account anymore, or they shut your CBDCs off from being used to purchase firearms or anything other than bread and water. The state will have a way to punish you if you get out of line. And like Jamie said, that is dystopian. We have to fight this with every single fiber of our being.
But young people are really taking on that cause. Absolutely. The protest data centers. What about this ballroom, though? What is going on there?
It's money laundering. It's always money laundering. That's it. It's money laundering. I think, Trump has, shocker, I may reveal this to you guys, Trump has a bit of an ego. You guys, have you heard this rumor where he likes to, so I'm going to build the biggest ball. That's why he's duped into doing it. But the reason, it's money laundering. That's all they're doing. They're laundering money through a government contract to feed it back to all the people that they want to, so they can get their cut.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Where are we? Where are we? Oh, well, government transparency. So I've got a cartoon. I'll see if I can find it really quickly, but it's great. I got permission from the cartoonist to put it on the website, but it shows like just how it's in reverse. Everything's in reverse. Like we can't see the government at all, but they have this giant magnifying. They're on the other end with this giant magnifying glass, and they see everything that we do. So I don't know, any thoughts on government transparency, what we can do about that? Because they seem to be able to just dodge everything with FOIA loopholes and everything. What are your, I don't know, Jamie, do you want to take that first?
Transparency is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. And I mean, even with campaign financing, who is funding the people that are creating our legislation? I keep saying this, but I'm not sure why we don't have the same expectations of the people who are creating our legislation as we do our judges and our attorneys, where they have to disclose these conflicts of interest. So I just, it's so paramount to trying to correct things. And sometimes I get ahead of myself and I get worried, like, are we past that point where we can make these changes? Because it's so ingrained in the system now. It's going to take a Herculean task to be able to get the people who are making money to disclose what they're doing. And so that's why it's so important to get real people in the House and in the Senate who are not being influenced by these donors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to go and see like really something very scary, go look up an organization called Epic and look at what they went through and how many lawsuits they filed with DHS, FBI, what else? No, not NSA. Well, just trying to get information from the 2016 election and what had happened. And it's crazy. They use every loophole they can find. So you're right. It's a Herculean effort. It's terrifying. I don't know, Jeremy,
Well,
do you have any?
yeah, I have something to add, kind of from a different perspective. Single issue bills. The
100%.
reality
Yes.
is, yeah, the reality is this is where your corruption lives. There, they will bury all of this corruption in massive omnibus bills, put a cherry on top, which is we're funding immigration control. And if you vote against it, they will run millions of dollars in ads that say you're against immigration control. And it's just the most ridiculous, nonsensical thing because you're voting on it's like here's 90% corruption, 8% of things that might be useful, and 2% of things that Americans want. And they leverage that 2% to force their Congress and Senate into voting for it because they don't want to be on the record opposing that 2%. And so they go along with the massive corruption that is just built into the system. That's what these continuing resolutions do. That's what these omnibus bills do. They're full of garbage. Trump's big, beautiful bill continued the funding that not only Doge caught and wanted to end, it continued all of the Minnesota fraud that they uncovered, all of those learning centers, and guess what? So will the next one. They will make none of the cuts. They're not interested in making cuts. They're going to continue to send your money out to fraud, waste, and abuse. What they're going to do is they're going to add a little nugget to each bill to make you do it. And it's not transparent at all because it's propagandized to us that we have to vote for this bill for this pet project right here. It's so important. And while it's just completely full of
you can't vote against a 3% pay increase for active duty military.
Right.
You know, and you know, this is a sign of a society and an electoral system in decline. Chris Hedges talks about it a lot if you follow him. Does anyone want to jump in? Do you think America's in decline right now? I mean, are we really in like do you really think that what do you think's coming down the pipeline in these next 10, 20 years if we don't get it together?
Well, I saw a video the other day that said where this guy was explaining, do you understand how badly you have to abuse a mammal to make it stop reproducing?
I saw that.
that is where we are. Your great-grandparents had 12 children, okay? Your grandparents had 4 or 5. Your parents had 2 or 3. I have 1, and I'm done. I can't fathom. I would love to have more children. They would be homeless. There is no way. And by the way, my wife has a doctorate. I run a financial institution, and we are like, nope. 1 kid's about what we can do it good for. So that alone explains the decline in America, is that that as a society, young people do not feel good or confident bringing new humans into the world.
Right.
It's a great litmus test right there. What do you think, Jamie?
Jeremy, I think you said it great. I agree with you, especially in the transparency and the single line item bills. That is something that just seems like common sense. You can't read that much and be able to knowledgeably vote on something. It's just impossible, and it's just exactly a way to get something through without it being read properly. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on all of that.
Yeah, I read somewhere that they mainly just have their staffers when it's that big. Like, they're not even looking at everything. So, yeah.
Give it to them the night before at midnight. No big deal.
Right, right. Okay, let's see. We'll go to, how about demilitarizing the police? Anybody?
All the weapons of war coming back home. Who wants to start?
Well, I mean, clearly we don't want a police state. So I agree with that. I think a lot of times it makes the situations way more dangerous. So I think that militarizing your police it makes you feel like you live in a war zone, and we don't. And we live in a free country, and our police should be supporting our communities, not walking around like military officers, keeping everyone in line.
Do you think we're slow walking ourselves into a 1984 police state right now? We have, a lot of, with the data centers, the surveillance, we're losing everything. But then all these immigration detention facilities, and here comes ICE, this new heavily militarized kind of rogue agency. Do you kind of fear like some 1984 stuff here? Do you think we're kind of slow walking into it, and then once they get the immigrants, it'll be turned on everybody else?
I don't think it's slow. That's the part I object to. They're moving pretty damn fast now with it. I would say that we need to go back to the purpose that these things exist for. As libertarians, you may be an anarchist and you may go, well, we should privatize the police. I'm not going to get into that argument. We have a National Guard. Let the National Guard do what the National Guard does. Let police do what police do. And I believe that even with police, they are still hammers. We should probably have some folks on the police force that are a little softer touch, that know how to solve problems, that aren't with a gun. There's a massive mental illness problem in this country that we could use people trained to handle those situations. And a paramilitary force is not who should be handling situations like that, right? But I don't think it's slow. I think we are quickly getting to 1984 levels of dystopian. And just keep in mind that the police we're not sending, Brooklyn's finest or the Chicago PD to go fight wars on our coastline. They are there to fight you and your community and the people in your community. That doesn't mean I'm not one who subscribes to like cops are all bad or are there. But what I am saying is they are not here to fight wars for us. They are here to police the population. And so those weapons are for you.
Well said.
Whoops, sorry, I was muted. And then there's just a culture of, I don't know, the authoritarian. I'm sure you all saw the recent where the woman, I guess she was having a mental health emergency kind of situation, and they beat her up. Just awful, terrifying.
When you're a hammer, everything is a nail.
Right.
When you treat people like criminals, they start to behave that way.
Right. I guess we covered election security enough. I hope I'm going to make a clip of that part. I want everybody to see that. I'll just say what alarms me so much about that is not just that we have that kind of a cybersecurity company doing these reports, is that why is PBS putting out this information? And I think that's where we need to be really careful about saying that everything is Israel's fault. And I hope in this investigation, it comes out that no, this was corrupt back then. It was corrupt. It was LBJ and McNamara and Angleton, and who knows who else. But it is corrupt people in our government too. So we can't just say it is a collusion. It's definitely a symbiotic relationship, I think. So I just notice that sometimes. Do you guys notice that? It seems like you can't just pin it all on Israel, right? But okay,
yeah,
so
I mean, I totally agree.
okay, so I also have on here, it says Americans' confidence in the judicial system and courts dropped to a record low of 35% in 2024. It was the most current, but anyone want to take that? What do you think? How about Jamie, about just reform in that area?
I think that because so many of them are elected positions, they become political and they become influenced. And it's true with any elected position. And I do think we see a lot of issues in the court systems. I've seen them here. Our own governor here in Pennsylvania was a former attorney general, and there's a lot of questions regarding a case in Philadelphia that he would not reopen, a suicide where this woman stabbed herself in the back 20 times. But that's neither here nor there. There's just a lot of undue influence in the court systems that can be very frustrating for the people, because they're there and meant to help them sort through what it is they need sorted through. And especially when it comes, we see a lot of issues with family law too. A lot of people having issues with the family law system and the custody matters that go on and things of that nature. So I do see that there is distrust in that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that they're elected. I think maybe even worse are the ones that are appointed. But I wondered, we had this discussion with independent candidate Karen Ortiz. She was a judge. But what do you guys think about having people on your campaign that can sort of help, you're in your district, people understand who the judges are on their ballot? Because this is something I was thinking back, I'm guilty of this as well. Back before, when I would kind of vote straight party, one or the other, you don't even know that much about the judges, that you don't know what party they're with. Maybe that doesn't matter so much anymore, but I had this idea, what if, it takes a little bit of digging, but if you could have someone on your campaign do some research, how did this judge, rule on these really important cases, so that when people, because I think these judges just sort of get there and they stay there, and people don't know about them. So
I also think that it's helpful that we inform our populace of their rights as jurors. I know that we have a lot of people who try and talk about jury nullification. So I think that's one way that the community can step up and exercise their rights.
Right. Well, even now we've got ballot access battles in court. Well, okay, who are the judges that are going to decide this? So I think we better get on this topic, really start helping people understand who their judges are.
Political candidates need to run with judges on some tickets and stuff. We really need to kind of electoral, executive or branch, but also the judicial. We need to kind of start bringing the judges into some of the more high profile candidates races, I feel.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything on that, Jeremy?
I think a lot of district attorneys are corrupt. I think that being an elected position is we may not have a better option, but it certainly incentivizes them to stack charges and then negotiate them down so that they get convictions. And overall, yeah, this democracy is not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and tout that democracy is even a good thing. The only thing that I can say to solve this is that there has to be kind of an education or means test before you're allowed to vote on these people. Do you know where they stand on these issues? Because they're picking names out of a hat or based on a party, and they know nothing about these people, and the consequences are dire. But that's the flaw in democracy.
It would be great to have to go into a voting booth and be able to have all that information about who this person is, rather than spending money on I voted stickers. Couldn't we have spend it so that we can get some more information about the people that are actually being voted on?
There you go. Democracy,
Right.
information,
Absolutely.
but they don't want that.
Well, the sticker we really need, and I saw it from the North Carolina where I live, Libertarian Party, had posted it on social media. It says, "I voted. Where's my receipt?" I like that.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I also have environmental hazards on the list here, because it is when you look at specifically, in your backyard issues. That's what a majority of people are really concerned about. And this issue can tend to get a little divisive sometimes, but I think when you focus on things that are right there in your community, it's more, a nonpartisan thing. So I just wondered if you have anything, of anything in your district we know the data centers, I guess we've covered that. They're terrible for the environment, but anything else that you know of where you are or that you want to address?
Not that I'm familiar with here in Kentucky's Fourth. We do have the Ohio River, and we deal with some downstream stuff, but it's basically been an industrialized river for a long time. The infrastructure exists for us to take care of our water and have good, clean water here. But I think a bigger one that more people are interested in is we understand the destruction of our food supply right now and what it's doing to our bodies. And it's kind of crazy that the company who makes the pesticide that gives you cancer also makes cancer drugs. And so there's corruption in the food supply and the environmental hazard side when it comes to what's happening to our food.
Isn't it crazy how that topic has flipped sides? Anybody else notice that? When I was a young mom, it was, that used to be just a Whole Foods, a liberal issue, or what, I don't know. Now it's
Right.
completely flipped. It's so strange. I call it, it's like the star-bellied Sneetches, Dr. Seuss.
Well, it's sad that it's so politicized that it would flip-flop on that way. It's a health issue, and it's something that we should all be concerned about. It's amazing to me how many issues go back and forth between the parties and flip-flop. But when it comes down to it, these are all human issues that we need to be addressing, and we're overlooking them and forgiving the involvement in pharmaceutical industry and the industrial and our agriculture industry. It's frightening. Even just the amount of antibiotics that are pumped into the meat supply that we get. That's why I wholeheartedly support all of our local farmers. That's where we should be spending our money, is at our local farmers, supporting them.
Yeah. Okay, so healthcare. This is probably, I put this one last on the list. It's definitely not last in priority, but it's definitely one that is, the least where the Greens and the Libertarians agree. Although I will say, I think I've heard more Libertarians say in recent years that they would rather see some kind of public option funded than us to continue funding wars and funding.
Yeah.
So
now neither, if both are, if I can do neither, obviously, but if you're giving me spend the money here, spend the money there, yeah, absolutely, it should be spent in America on people's healthcare. The problem is when we give government a blank check to give to people for services, the prices of those services skyrocket and go through the roof, as we've seen with college education. And that's why that is in our opinion, a bad plan. But there is no way you look at the healthcare system in America and go, this isn't working. This is kind of broken. And I have a theory on that. So, as I said, my wife's a doctorate. I'll share. She is a veterinarian. And so we get kind of a look into the only healthcare left that is paid by cash, where insurance has very little influence. And I'll tell a little quick anecdote here for you. I ran some numbers because a couple years back, my father had a hip replacement. He got it done at kind of a slummy hospital in eastern Birmingham, Alabama, the part of Birmingham where they filmed like the first 48. And he got it done there by an orthopedist, and it cost right around $90,000. That's what the total bill was. Now insurance covered this amount, he covered this amount, so on and so forth. $90,000 for a hip replacement. If he had plucked his doctor, put him on a first-class flight to Cancun, Mexico, put him in a resort for a week, and they did that in a hospital in Mexico, it'd be around $40,000. Okay, which is less than what oftentimes his share of that hip replacement surgery would be. Do you know what it costs to replace a dog's hip? Now, I know that sounds crazy to people. They're like, oh, these are two different worlds. The hip is manufactured by the same company that manufactures human hips. The doctors go through the exact same sort of training and rigor and all that other sort of stuff. Anybody want to take a guess at what it costs? It's $5,000 to replace your dog's hip. That's because you don't have this massive administrative structure in the middle that is blowing out the expenses, blowing out the profit margins for both the insurance company, the hospital, the medical provider, not just the doctor themselves, but I'm talking about the pharmaceutical companies and everybody who's involved. There's all this stuff in the middle that gets hidden and done behind the scenes, and we're the people who pay the price. When it's a veterinarian, it's like, hey, you do this, I pay you this. And they can't charge $10,000. They can't charge $15,000. Do you know why? Because people don't replace their dog's hips if you charge that price. We have to get back to a relationship with doctors and patients where we pay doctors, and there are not 15 people in the middle of the process clouding and uglying and making this process more expensive.
Well, and the legislation that goes along with it. So they come in and they want rules set so that it benefits them financially on how they run this. So it's always where the money is. So unfortunately, government getting involved in anything makes it more expensive and makes it work worse. It just doesn't work any better.
I love this conversation, but Michael, go ahead. Please.
Right now, Scott, costs are through the roof. Through the freaking roof. So what you said was, if we get a single payer or a government involved and give them a blank check, the costs are going to go through the roof. Well, what we have right now is the government is not involved and costs are going through the roof.
What way is the government not involved? Oh, hang on. Yeah, what way is the government not involved?
They are a little, but what I'm saying is, like, we have a private, health insurance in this country.
Well,
so one of the dirty little tricks,
seniors, but you know what I mean, like the private market.
You're right.
And costs are through the roof. And so let me ask you, these countries in like Europe and Western Europe, I think their cost of healthcare is a lot lower, and they have it from the top down. And then you also mentioned going to Mexico, where they're getting a lot less. So I guess just how do you? It kind of seems like. Yeah. Anyone want to jump in there, Jeremy?
Sure.
What do you want to say about that?
I ask you to call someone in Canada or call somebody in Europe and ask them how quickly they can go see a doctor.
Well, actually, I can speak on that.
Yeah.
So now we see why we put this at the bottom of the list. And I am truly a very strong independent. I am neither green nor libertarian, but I will say my one side of the family is Canadian, and the waits aren't any longer than if you have to see a specialist here. I will say that. And the other thing is my oldest daughter, I don't know if she watches this. I hope she wouldn't mind me telling this story. But she left school here, left Boston University and moved to Scotland. And when she was her freshman year, she decided it was a good idea, she and her roommates, to take an air mattress and sled. And she almost went headlong into a building and knocked her front tooth out, and it was $75. Now I had to pay $900 for her like 4 years of whatever that was, NHS, I guess there. So I think these conversations are really good. I think it's like we've got to look at the whole picture, and I don't know what, but then on the flip side, I know that, Obamacare has been a big, huge giveaway to insurance companies and people's premiums. I had it at one point, and it was going to jump up to $1,300 a month, and they wouldn't cover anything. So it's all a mess, and I don't know what, who really has the right answer, and maybe it's going to have to be like a hybrid of something, but we'll see. We see why we put it at the bottom.
I would just say my advice to people who want to fight back on this system, it's very, very simple. Boycott insurance companies. I think that you're paying $600-700 a month in premiums, and this includes from your employer. You're paying a lot of money a month for premiums. Put that money in a savings account and then pay cash. You'll notice that what was an $8,000 bill at the hospital, when you tell them I'm paying cash, it quickly goes down to about $2,000 to $3,000, and you have that money set aside. Pay yourself, put it in savings, and that's how we fight back.
Well, see, I think candidates like that we have on here are willing to have these conversations in the areas where maybe they diverge a little bit, and with so much other common ground on so many other things, that there's hope for us to find good solutions. Mm-hmm. So I guess with that, we're at 9 o'clock, but it was really great to meet you guys. And I had a clip, I'll save it for next time. Michael, I might want to show it to you after, but it's Bernie Sanders talking about Massey. I think I'll just make a separate clip of it. It was very interesting.
Okay, great.
But it was great to meet you both.
Rock on, guys.
Yeah, I really wish both of you the best of luck, and get out there on the ground and talk to all the not boomers, I guess. Right?
Boomers' lives matter too.
I know. But
I had to tell somebody the other day, I don't hate boomers, they just hate me. And so what am I supposed to do?
I'm that's where I'm having my biggest problem. I think it's the tattoos and the nose ring that turns them off for me.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know what though? It might just be too late to try to win any of them over. And I think it's more important to reach out to younger people.
The younger generation has the numbers to make a serious difference if they would stand up and let their voices be heard. That's really all I want them to know, is that if they're not they seem so despondent, like they don't have a future, but right now they have the opportunity to make some serious changes in our government right now if they would just get out and vote.
Yeah. Well, if you got, you know what, I will play this clip. It's 1 minute and 19 seconds. If you, neither of you have a hard stop right now.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So, I would like to play it and we'll discuss it after, but here we go.
Here is the political reality of today, a reality that we just saw yesterday in the election in Kentucky, when Congressman Thomas Massey, somebody who I have very little in common with politically, was defeated by $9 million in contributions from AIPAC and $7 million from Trump mega donors. And what was the great crime that Massey committed that gendered so much super PAC money in opposition to him? Well, he opposed the war in Iran, and so do the vast majority of the American people. He demanded that the Epstein files be open, which is what the American people have wanted, and he refused, what a crime, what an outrage, to be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. Let's be honest. The reality is that any candidate today who stands up to the AI industry, to crypto, to AIPAC, and other special interests will be hit with an onslaught of TV ads and social media attacks paid for by the richest people in this country.
I was a Bernie supporter.
Wow, Bernie.
And no, after that, no, because he then tried to sheep herd everybody into voting an establishment candidate that had nothing in common with anything that he said. So when I watched that, I just thought to myself, okay, right off the bat, he has to say, Massey, who I have nothing in common with. Like, got to be divisive right away, right? And then he proceeds to say, so I would like to ask him, well, what do you have such a difference with him on? Because then you go into transparency, being bought off by AIPAC and other special interests, and being against the war. And if you look at what Democrats and the party that Bernie runs under, and that includes, I'm sorry, young people, but AOC and Mamdani and all this, they are running with a party that is against all of those three things that he just mentioned. So I really wish, but I don't want to see, because I voted for Obama twice. And this No Kings thing drives me crazy. It's why I named this No Peasants. It's kind of a play off of that. But I think they're being fooled into, they need to be paying attention to what they're doing, not what they're saying. Right. So I really wish I could get an answer. Gun control, maybe that's where they differ. But what do you have a problem with any of those things that Massey is for? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, Bernie's right. There is nothing that almost nothing from economics, gun control. There's almost nothing that those two agree on. But it's rhetoric. What I think, here's what I'll say. What I think he's getting at here is there's policy of an individual and there's the soul of an individual. And from a policy standpoint, they probably disagree on almost everything. But from the soul of, like you said, tell the truth, be authentic, be honest with the American people, and stand up for what you believe is right. I think in that way, the soul of what we as Americans believe in can be found in people. Because I'll tell you this about Bernie. I find him to be wrong, but I find him to be authentic, and I think he thinks he's telling the truth. I'd like him to read some better economics books, but ultimately, I've never questioned his integrity in what he believes. And I think that's what we're getting at here, is that when people are paid off empty suits, they're not making their own decisions. They're not standing up for what they believe in. They're doing the bidding of other people. And Massey does not do that. And here's the thing about this race, Bernie, we're not done yet. We're not done. Let's see how these people do in a general when everybody can vote. And I plan to make a big old mess, and we are not done.
Nice. Bernie Sanders never got primaried by AIPAC. He never stood up and challenged his party and went against Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or the machines. So Bernie Sanders was a good boy. He was a good boy. Right. He never had $15 million or whatever it was in AIPAC go and try to unseat him in a race. And and have what I mean. So Bernie was a good boy. He towed the line. You want to say anything, Jamie?
No, I mean, Bernie Sanders is a bit of a character, and I can't take anything seriously that he says, because he reminds me of Mr. Magoo.
Well, it's interesting to hear your perspective from the libertarian side of things. I think from my perspective, as kind of coming from that side, I just see that so much of what they say never matches up with what they actually do. Like, I laugh when I hear people say he's a communist. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, thank you for indulging me on that. I think maybe we'll play that with some of the young, more progressive candidates as well, and see what they think. It's good to have. Well, it's good to have both sides. So thank you very much. Okay, can you guys want to just say where people can find you, how they can support you, Jeremy?
Sure, I'll go at jtodd601 on Twitter is me. I'm not changing it, and if I've told everybody, if I win, I'll tell you what the 601 is. It is not just a random bunch of numbers. And you can go support me in this campaign to make sure that Massey was not removed in vain, and that a voice like his can continue to exist in Congress by electing me. And you can go to www.jeremy-todd.com.
Cool. All right, Jamie.
You can also find me on X at Remmey for Congress. I am looking for donations badly now, looking to get some paid petitioners to help get on the ballot in Pennsylvania. I'm also looking for volunteers. So if anybody is interested in coming up to Pennsylvania, we will be providing you guys with places to stay. We're opening our homes to anybody who is willing to come and help volunteer to get me on the ballot. We're soliciting donations. You can find a link to my the QR code to my donor box and link on my X page, or you can follow me over at my website. You can get links to all that at jamiefrostremmey.com.
Very cool. You know, independent Diane Sayre got more signatures, I think, than anybody in her race. And she did that. Instead of paying people, she had like volunteers come. So when is your
That's what I'd
deadline?
love to see happen. Ultimately, I am very financially frugal. You can ask my county affiliate as their treasurer. I never let them spend money. So I would much rather see an army of volunteers up here. I will feed you and we will give you a place to stay. I need volunteers every weekend until the end of July.
Okay, great.
Right.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Keep up the
Great
good
to
fight.
have you.
Yeah, thank you guys. See ya.
Thank you.
See ya.
Take care.